Hey everybody, this is Wileen, and this is our group power alignment call. I wanted to really just share with you some insights that I've received in my own personal daily GPS over the last few days. And actually, it's been probably the last couple of weeks because nature always gives me some amazing insight. I feel that I'm rooted in nature. I used to say I'm grounded in the earth, because when you're like, but God's will be, his will in heaven be the same as it is on earth or whatever. I think of myself as being, connected with God, but also grounded in earth. But over this last couple of weeks, I've kind of shifted my thinking a little bit, and I don't really use that language anymore of being grounded in earth. I think of myself as being rooted in nature. And the reason why is because earth is in a fallen state. Earth was created, it was near to God, near to Kolob, and Adam walked and talked with God, and everything was amazing. And Adam was able to create right alongside God, have dominion over the earth, and everything flourished spontaneously. And then when he partook of the fruit, then the earth fell. And so we are living on an earth that is in a fallen state, which is great. We have the opportunity to learn the power to create without God standing right beside us, but also having, that connection to heaven with him through our daily GPS, through prayer, through those things that we do on a daily basis to connect with him. And that's wonderful and awesome. But I am seeing, and especially over the last couple of weeks, I've seen that the command that God gave to all the inhabitants of earth, the plants, the animals, the people, everything that the earth, was housing, everything that he placed on the earth after the earth was created, gave the command to multiply and replenish. And, some of what I'm going to be sharing here is probably a little bit more towards Lord's way to wealth, but that's okay, because this is all about truth and just realigning with truth. That's what power alignment is realigning with God's truth. And, with regard to whatever it is that you're wanting to co-create with God, partnering with God to create what he wants for you, this is part of it. This principle that I'm going to be sharing with you today is part of it. And so it has to do with money. It has to do with health. It has to do with, the stewardship that they have over our bodies, over our families, over our homes, over our lands, all these things. So whatever it is that you are wanting to multiply and replenish in your life, this is part of it. I was led to the parable of the talents. And along with that, you might kind of laugh at this because it seems kind of silly, but the story of Rumplestilskin. And I'm not going to go into the story of Rumplestilskin. You can Google it if you're not familiar with it. But there, in the story of Rumplestilskin, the king had chosen a new queen. I can't remember the whole story, but I think he had chosen a new queen, and he put her in a room all by herself with a pile of straw and a spinning wheel, and said, spin this straw into gold by tomorrow, or you're done. Like, we're going to get rid of you. And she was really concerned because she didn't know how to turn straw into gold. And so she, as the story goes, this Rumpelstiltskin came in and required her firstborn son to, as payment, and he spun the straw into gold. And I have, a whole nother, I could probably write a book on this. So I'm not going to go into that part of it, but I want to talk about the turning straw into gold, the transforming straw into gold. And like I said, this is kind of more of a Lord's way to wealth thing, because Laura and I have been building the 2022 updated version of Lord's way to wealth. The old 2019 version is still very much in effect. It's very much appropriate and current, as far as like today's standards. But this is like new knowledge that we didn't have before. And she and I are creating this together. And one of the things that we have discovered is that there is a formula for transforming straw into gold. And I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on that, transforming straw into gold. And it is cooperation plus circulation equals transformation. So if you want to transform anything, whether it is straw into gold, or if you want to transform a relationship that's not working into a relationship that is, if you want to turn your old wardrobe into a new wardrobe, whatever it is that you want to transform, something that is not perfect in your life, it requires cooperation and circulation. So that formula, if you want to just write that down, that's going to kind of come into play as we go through this. So in the story of Rumpelstiltskin, the queen was sitting in this, I envision her in a high tower, like they always are, in the highest tower of the castle, with just like this slit, of window just for air, and no way to get out, no way to tie the bed sheets together or whatever, to climb down or whatever. But she had this space, like a little, this is my mind and my envisionment of this story, and the queen sitting in the castle with this pile of straw, and she has this little slit for a window. So just kind of envision that with me. And because she was the queen, she had servants. Okay, now this isn't the story, this is the way I'm telling the story, but she had servants. And so she called down to some of the servants, maybe the gardeners that were out there gardening underneath the window or something. She called down and she said, please send some servants. I have some instructions for them. And so we're going to call it 3 servants came to the window, to the bottom of the window, and we're looking up, and she was talking to him, and she's like, I have this big pile of straw in here. I need to turn it into gold, and I'm trapped in this tower, and I don't have a phone, I don't have a computer, I don't have social media, I don't have any way to communicate with the outside world. And so I need you as my servant to be my communication tool, to go to people and find cooperation and circulation so that we can transform this straw into gold. And so I just envisioned her bundling up these straws, maybe there were some string off to the side, that the straw had been bundled with or something, twine. And she took these little pieces of twine and tied bundles of straw and tossed it out the window. Now, again, this is not the story of Rumpelstiltskin. This is Wileen's version of Rumpelstiltskin. And tossed these bundles of straw out to the servants. And to one of the servants, she threw 5 bundles of straw and sent him off. And then she threw 2 bundles of straw to the next servant and sent him off. And to the third servant, she threw 1 bundle of straw. And she said, go and transform this straw into gold. And so the first servant that had 5 bundles, he took those bundles of straw, and he made these beautiful baskets that then he took to the farmer's market. And there were all these housewives that were shopping at the farmer's market, and they needed something to put their vegetables in that they were buying at the farmer's market. And so he was selling his baskets to the farmer's wives, to the housewives, to collect their vegetables to take home. And so he turned his straw into baskets, and then those baskets turned into gold, transformed into gold, because of cooperation with the conversations that he had with the housewives. He walked around and he's like, hey, it looks like you have a whole bunch of vegetables there, and you don't have anything to carry them in. I'm selling these baskets for 2 gold pieces a piece. How many would you like? And, some of them took 1, some of them took 2, some of them took 5, some of them had their servants with them, and each one had to have a basket. And so he sold all of his baskets. And then he went back to the base of the the tower and said, hey, I got your five, I took your 5 bundles of straw and I've transformed it into however much gold, like, 20 gold pieces. She's like, awesome. And so with some of that twine that she had actually fashioned her own basket out of the straw that was left, and then she ran it down, and the servant put his 20, 30 gold pieces or whatever it was into the basket, and then she pulled it up, and she was able to take those 5 or 20 gold pieces and set them in the pile where the straw had been. So then the second servant took his 2 bundles of straw and didn't have quite as many bundles of straw, so he didn't have quite enough to make like big baskets, but he was able to make these little dolls that sort of look like corn husk dolls, but they were made out of straw. And these straw dolls he took to the toy manufacturer, and he said, hey, do you have any straw dolls in your store? And he's like, no, I don't have any straw dolls. And that's something that I think little girls would really love, and even some little boys would really love to have these straw dolls. And maybe he even made some straw animals, like a little straw dog and a little straw cow and a little straw horse, to to have like a little farm that the kids could play with. And so the toy manufacturer, or the toy seller, was looking at these straw animals and the straw dolls, and he was like, I like these. I think I can sell these in my store. How much would you like for them? And he's like, how about 1 gold piece, a piece for each one of these little animals and those dolls that I made? And so he's like, yep, that sounds good to me. And so he gave the gold pieces to the second servant. And the second servant gave all of his straw that had been turned into dolls and little animals to the toy seller. And he was able to take his, 10 gold pieces and go back to the queen at the base of the tower and look up and say, I have your gold. And she ran her little basket down that she had made with the twine, and then pulled the gold pieces up and added those 10 gold pieces to the pile of 20 that was already there. And then the third servant that had one bundle of straw, and it was a pretty big bundle, so he got quite a bit of straw. He went home and he was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to turn straw into gold. What if I'm not able to follow this command? Like, I don't even know. I can make some stuff out of straw, but what if nobody buys it? And he just was in a lot of fear and worry that he would not be able to obey the queen's command and be able to turn that straw into gold. And so instead of turning it into something that he could sell, he actually, realized that in his own house, he needed a straw mat to lay on, and he didn't have one. And so he's like, well, at the very least, I can make a straw mat out of this straw. And so it's not just a bundle of straw. I can actually turn it into something that's sort of useful. And then I'll just, keep the straw mat. And then that way, if she wants the straw back, I can give her the straw mat, or, whatever, but at least I won't have lost it. And so he made his straw mat, and he had a little bit of straw left over. And instead of taking that straw and turning it into something that he could take and then cooperate with people and circulate by transferring, by exchanging, what he had created for some gold, he just stuffed that straw underneath the mattress, underneath the mat, and laid down on it and went to sleep. And then the next morning, he went to the base of the tower, and he said, I'm sorry, Queen, I was not able to turn the straw into gold, but I made a mat out of it. And so I decided I probably should at least come back and, give you the mat. And there's a little bit of extra straw in there too. So here's your mat and some straw. And she actually was like, I don't need a mat. What I really needed was gold. So, why don't you go ahead and give that mat to the, to the guy who I gave the 5 bundles of straw to. Maybe he can go and take that mat and sell it and turn it into some gold. And so, so that third servant obeyed, gave it to the first servant that had 5 bundles of straw, and he was able, because he had made these relationships with the housewives, with the farmers' wives at the farmers market. He was able to go house to house, and he found somebody who needed a mat, and so he was able to turn that mat into gold and transform it into gold through cooperation and circulation, and then brought it back. And then the queen ran her basket down, and the guy put, the first servant put his maybe 5, because that seems like a pretty valuable thing, 5 pieces of gold into the basket, and the queen brought it up. And so then she was able to add those 5, because the wise servant who had taken the 5 was able to take what the unwise servant that didn't know what to do with it was able to actually utilize that and create and transform it into some gold. So when the king came and opened the door, he saw that now there was maybe just a little bit of straw still strewn on the floor, but also with the straw, there was gold. There were 30, however many was, 20, 30, 35. There were 35 pieces of gold that were there, which was way more than he had had before. And so the difference between the story of Rumpelstiltskin and the story the way that I just told it is that this is real gold. Rumpelstiltskin, in the story, he spun the straw into gold, and I envisioned that it was more of an illusion, that there wasn't really gold there. It still was straw, but the king saw gold when he came in. He's like, oh, there's a pile of gold there, but it wasn't even real. And but the way that the queen was able to do it through her servants, she was able to actually make tangible, real gold pieces that was spendable, that could be circulated again, back into the farmer's market, back into, at the toy seller, back into all of the town. And so it kept perpetuating the cycle of wealth and multiplied and replenished the cycle of wealth. So as you can probably tell, I've also incorporated the story of the talents, the parable of the talents, that's in Matthew 25, 14 and 30. And as I was, considering this story, the way that I told it, it really makes sense to me why the master of the household took the one talent away from the poor servant who didn't know what the heck he was doing, and gave it to the one who had done 5, who had, turned 5 into 10, doubled it. Because straw does have some use. There are, some things that farmers and ranchers can do with straw, but by and large, straw is useless unless you can turn it into something that is useful to people. And you can turn it into, and if you can turn it into something useful, then you can also turn it into gold. So my thought is that there are 2 parts that are 2 questions maybe that we need to ask ourselves. First of all, what is your straw? What is that raw material that you have, that if you're sitting in your tower and not able to access people, not getting on social media, not using your computer, not using your phone, not getting out and talking to people, that you're just sitting in your tower with this straw that could be transformed into gold, but there needs some cooperation and some circulation happening before that happens. What is that straw? For me, my straw is the gift of prophecy. It's the gift to be able to receive inspiration and to be able to translate that into something that the world can use. And for example, this inspiration that I received about the parable of the talents and the story of Rumpelstiltskin, and putting it into something that is that I can illustrate a principle and have you be able to get it, to be able to get the same inspiration that I did in a different way. And that is my straw. If I just sit in my tower and I receive my inspiration, I'm like, this is so amazing. It's straw. It's good for nothing. It can't be exchanged for anything unless I go out in the town and start getting to know some people, creating some relationships, finding the people who are wanting to use it and they're willing to give gold for it, willing to give some money for it. So the first question is, what is your straw? What is that thing, that gift that you have, that if you were able to, with cooperation and circulation, get it out to people, that it would be turned into gold? And then the second question is, who are your servants? Because you notice that in the story, the queen did not go out and do all of her own, she didn't make the baskets, she didn't make the toys, she didn't make the straw mat, she didn't go to the farmer's market. She was in her tower doing what she did best and making, having her straw there. And then there are servants that we have that would do our bidding, that would go out and transform, you do the cooperation, do the circulation, that would transform that straw into gold. And for me, I'll just tell you, Michael with Live Dove Media, he has been a servant of mine, where I have given him my straw and I've said, please go turn this into gold. And he has. Laura, who is my book publisher, I have had this manuscript that is good for nothing unless people read it. And I've said, please take this manuscript and turn it into gold. Take this straw and turn it into gold. And she has. She's helped me with editing. She's helped me with the process of, getting the book printed and things like that, to be able to get it out to the public so that it can be turned into gold, so it can be transformed into gold. There are, somebody that I'm working with right now for my website. And when we finally get that done, it's been a little bit frustrating, but when we finally get that done, that servant hopefully will have helped me turn my straw, which is my website, into gold, where people can go and actually find the things that they need so that they can pay me money. So what is your straw and who are your servants? Now, this all came about, this story that I just told you, and this might seem completely unrelated, but it is the method, it was the kind of method that brought me to this understanding about the straw, turning straw into gold. And that was, I've been working in my yard. I have a red twig dogwood, and it's a bush. And when I bought it, it was like in a 5-inch pot and just really small, planted it. And then every year it has expanded, and it's probably been there for like 25 years. So it's expanded quite a bit. So from a 5-inch pot, it has grown to, it was like about 30 feet long, because it was all up and down my driveway. And then it was about 5 feet wide. So it was from the driveway to the fence, was completely, and even like spilling over into the neighbors. And they would just cut their side a couple times a year. But I never cut mine. I just let it grow. And that's how far it got. So it was like 30 feet long and like 5 feet wide, from a little 5-foot or 5-inch pot. Also, you might know, because I've mentioned before, I have blackberry bushes, and blackberry bushes, they started, with a single plant, and then they throw out these long vines, and then wherever the vine touches the ground, it shoots these little roots down. And then from that, it creates a new vine, and it goes and goes and goes, and it could continually perpetuate itself, seriously take over the whole yard and the whole city of Mapleton if I let it, because it's so prolific and will just do that unless I cut it back. The other example I have is I had an aloe vera plant that was in this 5-gallon bucket, and it was so huge that it was literally practically tipping over. It was like really heavy on one side, huge aloe vera plant, and it was about to tip over the plant. And I was like, I got to do something. I chopped the heck out of that aloe vera plant, and each one of those pieces I replanted, and I think I have like 9 or 10 pots now with aloe vera. So basically the message I'm trying to get across is my yard and my home is filled with things that naturally multiply and replenish. And the dogwood was getting so far down to the end of the driveway that when we would back out, we couldn't see the road. We couldn't see far enough down the road to see if there was a car coming. And so I was like, okay, I got to do something. And so I really cut it back majorly to now it's only like maybe about a 5-foot diameter space. And I love the plant. And so I'm not going to take it out completely, you know, because I love the plant, but it had definitely overgrown its use. It had kept growing to the point where it was no longer useful. It was a detriment. And God has this bigger plan. He has a bigger plan of me and the benefit I can be to the world, the best that I can be personally. And sometimes I overgrow my usefulness, and there has to be a trimming back. And it's not like a cutting back, like you're getting too big for your britches kind of thing. It's more like the aloe vera plant. It's like we need to trim and cut and divide so that we can multiply. And it's like magnifying the usefulness and magnifying the beauty and magnifying the you know, the purpose of these things. The blackberries, when the years that I don't trim them back, the next year there will be more plant and fewer berries. So it actually is helpful and healthy for me to cut off the branches that produced this year so that next year I will have new shoots that will actually produce berries, and the old shoots won't be in the way to be able to pick them. So, you know, for the blackberry bush, it's very useful to be able to cut that back. For the dogwood, I cut it back for aesthetics and also cut it back for safety purposes, you know, to be able to see the road. And as far as aesthetics go, I have decided I want to plant some other plants. I don't want it just a solid row of green. I want, you know, some color in there. And so I decided that it would be more useful and more beautiful and more, you know, more safe, I guess, if you consider that, you know, being safe with not being able to see the road. If I trimmed it back, and then now I've just got to pull out the roots, which are kind of shallow, but they're very thick, you know, matted, like crossed over each other. So it's going to take some doing to get the roots out. But then I'm going to plant some flowers, you know, and it'll be perennials probably that will propagate themselves. So we'll have more plants that can multiply and replenish. But I have dominion. I have a bigger plan for that area west of my driveway than just have the dogwood just completely take over that whole space and just keep growing as much as it wants to. I have a bigger plan for that area. And so, you know, trimming it back was not like, you know, a reprimand, because I'm so grateful that I have a house and a yard full of things that multiply and replenish naturally. And this is I'm so grateful that God, you know, going back to originally what I had said in the beginning, that the earth has fallen, but nature still obeys that original command to multiply and replenish. And if we can remember that God has commanded all things to multiply and replenish, and if we can remember that affects everything. It's everything that God placed on the earth, he commanded to multiply and replenish. So all the raw materials that we work with have been commanded to multiply and replenish. And so all we need to do is, you know, take that raw material, take that straw, and through cooperation, because, you know, those servants knew that nobody's going to want to buy a piece of straw, but if I turn it into a basket, then that's some cooperation. I know that there is an audience for that. And there's, some people who would, if I circulate among the people and I circulate my wares and show them, that there will be some people who want to pay gold for that. So, so I guess another question to ask is in two different ways. First of all, you being the servant, and the other part is you being the master. So if I am the master of the west side of my driveway, and I am seeing the bigger plan for what is to be created there, then I need to have dominion. I have dominion over that west side of my driveway, okay? And the things that are growing there was not enough circulation because everything had matted in. There was a lot of dry dead wood inside of the dogwood, so it wasn't even being healthy in itself. But then once I started pulling that out, I realized that it not only needed the dead stuff taken out, but it had overgrown its usefulness, and so I needed to cut it back. So the grand plan that I had for that side of my driveway needed some cutting back. So sometimes cutting back is a good thing. It's necessary to be able to expand, like my aloe vera, to cut apart, separate, divide, and then I had 10 plants instead of 1. So as the master of the one who like the queen in the tower, or the master in the 10 talents, or in the 5 talents, the 2 talents, and the 1 talent, what is the master plan? What is the master plan that is transforming, whatever it is, this thing that you have dominion over? What are you transforming it into? For the queen, she needed to transform it into gold because that was her assignment from the king. For me and the west side of my driveway, I am transforming this overgrown dogwood into a beautiful flower garden that also is more open, so that you can have a better visual of the street. So that is the grand plan for that west side of my driveway. So as the master, what is your grand plan? And just looking at what you have to work with, having dominion over those things, and what needs to change. Does something need to be cut back? Do you need to plant something? Do you need to go cooperate with somebody to trade plants? Maybe I could trade my aloe vera for some sunflowers or something. So, what needs to happen for that grand plan to come about? And whatever happens, whether it's cutting back or planting or whatever it is, it's going to make that creation even more valuable and more useful to the world if you have dominion and you make those changes. And then the other thing is, as the servant, as God being the master, God having the grand plan, and seeing you as someone who's co-creating with God, and you're doing the master's bidding while he's away. What is your assignment? What has the master assigned you to do? What calling has he placed on your heart? And are you following through, or are you just weaving yourself a mat to lay on and tucking the rest of the straw underneath because you're afraid of failing? So, what, as the master, what is your grand plan for the things you have dominion over, that God has given you dominion over? And then you as a servant, what has God as the master who has dominion over you, what assignment has he given you to grow his kingdom? And that I want to end with this scripture that comes from the parable of the talents. That this is the first time that I've read this and read it like this. Matthew 25:14, it says, "For the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country, who called his own servants and delivered unto them his goods. And that's the beginning of the story of the 5 talents, the 2 talents, the 1. So the kingdom of heaven is as a man traveling into a far country. So Jesus has left this earth, traveling into a far country. He's gone to be with the Father until it's time for him to return again. And he called his own servants, who was us, and delivered unto him his goods. Delivered unto us his goods. He's delivered unto us the power to create, the command to multiply and replenish. He has given us materials, raw materials that have been commanded to multiply and replenish. He has given us all the things that we need. And for us to seek the kingdom of heaven, it is to live in this space of being the servant of the man traveling in the far country, who has delivered unto us his goods. So he gave us these goods on the earth. The earth has fallen, but nature still is under that command to multiply and replenish. And we are still under that command to go and turn our straw into gold, go and turn our raw materials into something that can be utilized to serve the world. And so just invite you to take these questions to heart and to your own daily GPS, to your own, connection with God, and to answer these questions. And if I, as one of your servants, can be helpful to you in helping you to fulfill your command, if I can help you in any way and serve you in any way in fulfilling your divine mission and purpose on earth, in God's greater plan, as you as one of his servants, please reach out to me, because that is my joy. That is my gratitude. That is what I love to do, is to be able to help you be able to tap into your power of godliness, co-creating with God, as a servant under his dominion, and also as the master, having dominion over the things that he has given you stewardship over. And if there's any way that I can support you in that, I am more than willing to do that. So please reach out to me on social media, or on my website, WileenBenson.com, whatever way that you can to get a hold of me. And we'll talk about what it is that is stopping you from really tapping into that power of godliness within you, co-creating with God, partnering with him to create the life that he wants for you, which is obviously the best. The best, he wants the best for you. He wants you to be the happiest. He wants you to be most joyful. He wants you to fulfill your divine potential, your earthly potential. And if there's any way that I can help you do that, that's what I would love to do. So thank you for joining me today, and look forward to another opportunity for us to connect.